Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Soul Power Tennis. Soul Power Tennis. Let me check my sounds. Soul Power. All right, so we're good to go. Okay. Welcome to Soul Power Tennis. I am Akhmose Ari, and we're here. Yeah. Travel in grace, knowing that you are protected by love. I'll drink to that. Well, with that being said, this broadcast is the last of its kind in terms of location. We're going to be on the move, doing some different things and some similar things. But there's a shift, there's a change coming. People get ready. There's a change coming. You don't need no ticket. You just get on board. Now it's there's a train a coming, but I think that was by the great Curtis Mayfield. So that's the announcement, is that this is the last time we'll be doing the live at this particular location, this particular locale. I'm gonna switch this up and put this way. See if that works. And that's what it is. A lot going on in life, a lot of shifts, a lot of changes, a lot of transitions, a lot of reinventions going on. So that's where we're at. That's where I'm at. And I'm just thankful that this has been a beautiful journey. And I'm excited about what's to come next as it pertains to Soul Power Tennis. Yes, Soul Power Tennis will continue. That's for sure. And again, as well as my other channels, Akhmose the Compostist, and my main channel, The Compliment King, building the Compliment Kingdom. So that's what's going on. That's the update. Stay with me. It's going to be a surprise in terms of like where I'll be at and what I'll be doing, so on and so forth. This camera should be a little bit higher. So let me see something. Let me try to adjust this on the fly without having to go behind the camera. See if that's possible. Okay, that's a little better. And we just got to straighten it out a little bit. Here's what we're going to do. Straighten it out. Straighten it out. Straighten it out. Straighten it out. There we go. So yeah, getting into it. We've started, so let's change this at the bottom of the screen. And please make sure you like, subscribe, share, click the notification bell before you do anything else. It will be greatly appreciated because we're still on our way to getting as many subscribers as possible by January 1st, 2023, so that we can get this channel monetized. The same thing would apply to my other channels. So if, I apologize for not spending as much time on this channel and on my Akhmose the Compostist channel, because I have the most subscribers on my main channel Right now, we're got a long way to go to get to 1,000 and the watch hours, but I'm working. I'm doing what I need to be doing in the midst of other things that I have going on. So I ask for your patience, and I ask that you continue to support me and be patient with me. And, December is a transition month, so it's going to be a lot going on. And I look forward to the new year, quote unquote 2023, and, being able to um being able to be a bit more consistent and settled in a way. It probably won't be into the springtime that we're officially like settled, maybe sometime in April or May, where I'll be in, yeah, just stay tuned, stay connected. If you join this live stream, feel free to ask any questions, leave a comment if you wish, and just be a part of the conversation. So that's out the way. Now we can move forward. Let me check my sounds real quick before I launch into it. All right. This particular broadcast is, as you read in the title, the era of the big 3, 4, or 5. Now, if we're being just and we're looking at the entire sport of tennis, there's really been like a big 5. And that would be Serena Williams, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, and Venus Williams. Those 5 people have dominated the sport with the most Grand Slams, most victories, the biggest victories and titles, playing against each other to get them. So male and female, we can throw in some honorable mentions as well, who contributed to Maria Sharapova, to Justine Henin-Hardin, to Kim Clijsters, to Andy Murray, to Stanislas Wawrinka, and we got some more honorable mentions. But in this particular broadcast, we're going to focus more so on the men. Because I'm a man. Because I'm a man now. But peace and love to Venus and Serena. I've given them their just due, and I will continue to here at Soul Power Tennis, because it is about you. However, this broadcast, we're getting more general and, putting a different spin on things and giving my interpretation and my view of what this era has been for the sport as it pertains to the men's side, the ATP. Now, we have 2-3 players who are honorable mention in a way. People call this era the big 3, talking about Roger, Rafa, and Novak. Why is it called the big 3 era? Well, it's the era in a sport that 3 players by far and above have surpassed the multitude of other players on tour who they're playing against. So they have dominated their competition with the most wins on tour, the most finals reached, the most finals and championships won on 500 level, 250, 500, most importantly, Masters 1000 level and the Grand Slam level. So they have the most ATP Masters titles and they have the most Grand Slam titles, thus the most wins by far in comparison to the rest of the tour. It's like no comparison. Those 3 players have 20 and above: Roger, Rafa, and Novak. 20, 21, 22. The nearest player after them has 3. And that would be the other 2 players where when I say the big 3, 4, or 5, because at one point it was called the Big 4 era or called the Big 4. And that was inclusive of Andy Murray, who was right there and competing with the other 3 for the big titles. He just didn't beat them as much. And sometimes he did beat them on the biggest stages. Him and Rafa never played in a singles Grand Slam championship final. A Masters series, yes. He beat him, and he beat him even more. But he's beat, Andy has beat Novak for a Grand Slam title. He's beat Roger for a Grand Slam title. He's won the ATP year-end finals. He's been world number 1. And so he's been there. Andy he has the top 5 most Masters titles of all time. I think he's number 5 on the list with like 14 behind Andre Agassi, who has 17. And then you have Roger, and then you have Rafa, and then you have Novak at the top. Novak and Rafa are close. He has 3 Grand Slams, 2 Wimbledons, and 1 US Open. The thing that's impressive about the Wimbledon title is that that's his home Grand Slam. And so most players who are from a country in a nation that has a Grand Slam in it, it seems to be very, very challenging and very, very rare that they actually win that home slam. You can go through countless, examples of players not winning, and you have a few who have won. And Andy has done that. And he's done that not once, but twice. And it was against Roger Federer at Wimbledon, where Wimbledon was Roger's strongest and best tournament. So all the pressure, Andy rose to the top. He's been to 11 major Grand Slam finals. In addition to that, he's the only tennis player in tennis history, male or female, to have won more than 1 gold medal. He's won 2 singles gold medal. He's the first player and the only player thus far to have won a singles gold medal more than once. He's won it twice. No one can ever take that away from him, ever. Novak doesn't have a gold medal. Roger has a doubles gold medal. Rafa has a singles gold medal, but Andy has 2. So it's his resume is stellar. He beat Novak to, get the year-end number 1, I think in 2016, the ATP finals. And with that win, he became number 1 and, was at number 1 for a decent amount of time. And so he's been at the top. So that's why he was included in the Big 4. And then you have some who posit, the Big 5 era, or you can swap in and swap out Andy with this other player. Not really, because Andy was a bit more consistent in terms of the big tournaments. However, if you were to make it a Big 5 era, you got to throw in Stan Wawrinka from Switzerland. Andy Murray's from Great Britain, Scotland in particular. Stan Wawrinka is from Switzerland. Same place where Roger Federer is from. Now, Stan has also 3 Grand Slams, just like Andy. But he has 3 of the 4. The only one he doesn't have is the Wimbledon Grand Slam title. But he won the Australian Open Grand Slam title, beating Rafa when Rafa was number 1 in the world. He won the French Open title, beating the number one player in the world at that time, Novak Djokovic. And he won the US Open title, beating the number one player in the world at that time, Novak Djokovic. He also has a gold medal. Now, it's a doubles gold medal with Roger Federer, his compatriot. So it's a doubles gold medal, but he has one. So he's due his congratulations. And again, he beat the world number one to win those Grand Slams. People didn't expect him to win it, and he won it convincingly, fearlessly. He's got a Masters title. He's reached some other Masters finals. So he kind of snuck in, you know, his years from 2014, 2015, 16, he was right there amongst the top. You know, so that's why it's like, okay, you can throw in Andy and Stan to maybe call it the Big Five era. But, you know, we got to make it the Big Four. And then Andy kind of dropped off, you know, over the previous 6 years or so, you know, 5-6 years or so with injury and just, you know, life events, you know, and the others. And even, you know, Stan, after 2016, Stan dipped. And, you know, both of them have been trying to find that form again, and it just hasn't happened as of yet. They've had some peaks and some successes. Meanwhile, Roger stayed where he was at until 2019, you know, and still winning Grand Slam titles and still competing at a very, very high level. Rafa and Novak are still winning Grand Slams, even in 2022. So, you know, and we got to give a shout out to my second favorite player, who I pulled for so often in the same era, who was the only one who in a 7-year time period to win a Grand Slam final amongst the big three, the big four. And that is Juan Martín del Potro from Argentina. That's my guy. So although he's only won one Grand Slam title and a Masters title, maybe two, and he's made it, you know, to another 1 or 2 Grand Slam titles, he's competed at the top. And people know that when he's on his game, kind of like Stan, when he's on his game, he can blow you off the court. He can beat anybody. So he strikes that fear in players, you know, being 6'5", 6'6", and just having that powerful forehand and his movement and just his gall and his fortitude and his conscience and his good spirit. Very well liked on the tour, you know. So got to throw him in as my guy. And there's, you know, plenty of others who were there and making it at the top, you know, Thomas Berdych, you know. But we're going to stick with the Big Five, in particular, the Big Four. And Andy, we love you, but we got to move into the Big Three. Just because of Grand Slams alone. Now, this is my observation of where things are at. If you ask me who's the greatest of all time, it's a toss-up. I'm complete with being like, just take your pick. I'll be fine with it. I've seen them all play. You know, I've witnessed their careers from start to where they're at now. So either one of them can be considered the greatest player of all time. They all have the resume. 20 plus Grand Slams. You know, Roger in 2001 came on the scene as a 19-year-old and beating Pete Sampras at Wimbledon. It's like, what? Wimbledon, Pete Sampras? And Pete won the US Open that year and retired. He knew his time was coming to a close. You know, Roger being 19, going on 20, being a teenager, he arrived on the scene. And then a year or two later, he's winning Wimbledon and dominating the sport. So it's like from 2002 2003 solidly to like 2005, he had like a 2-3 year stretch where he was just dominating the sport, dominating everybody. He wasn't winning all the Grand Slams just yet. It wasn't until like 2004, 5, where it was just like, okay, Roger's in his bag. He's beating everybody. So as Roger had just found his groove, but let me stay on Roger for a little bit longer. For him to have amassed and have won a Grand Slam title in his late 30s was impressive, because I don't think any other player had done that. Andre had won his last one leaving out of his mid-30s, going into his mid-30s. I think he was like 33 or something like that when he won the 2003 Australian Open, something like that. And he retired at 35, 36 a few years later. But for Roger to be winning Grand Slams, his last one came at 37, 38. I think it was 2018, 2019 or something like that. So for him to be doing that at that stage and do it as long from 2001 to about 2020, that's literally 20 years. He's been on tour, since about 2009? No. He's been on tour since about 1999, as like a 17-year-old, 17, 18-year-old. So it's like from 99 to 2009, he put in his work in the sport, and he's only retired this year in 2022. Third most ever ATP titles, third most ever Grand Slam titles. And when he was dominating the sport, it was just like, it was freakish. It was like you had never seen a force like that. And it wasn't like he was big and physically strong and just blowing people off the court. And that way, he moved gracefully, floated on the court, a gazelle, slim dude, strong build. And there was tactics, finesse, sprinkled in with power. And he did that. And he played against the previous era and started to beat them. Pete Sampras, Andre Agassi. So he was beating the previous era. Beat Andre in the Grand Slam final, U.S. Open. 2005, I want to say. So it was like, and then he's competing against guys in this era. So salute and shouts out to Roger Federer, man. You're just born in 81 like me, 41 just like me right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got my heart, man. You're just class personified. A family man, a businessman, a philanthropist. I'm not big on, the white savior thing and, in Africa, school in Africa, but I don't know all of the ins and outs. I know that Roger Federer seems to have a good heart, and he seems to have a good spirit. And his works in the world reflect that. As a businessman, as a family man, and as a tennis all-time great. So thank you, Roger. Salute. Rafa. Rafa is my guy. Ever since I first saw him in 2004, more so in 2005. It's like Roger was hitting his groove. He had 2-3 years deep into it of just dominating the sport. And then here comes this young whippersnapper. 17 years old, 2004, coming on the tour. 17 going on 18. Buggy whip, forehand, left-handed, capri shorts or pants, cut off sleeve shirts or tops, bandana, long hair, muscles just protruding, nuances, peculiarities, peculiar on the court. strong Spanish accent, but a warrior on that court. Peaceful off the court, but a warrior on that court. He was like the ultimate warrior when you think about wrestling. You know, it's like that's who Rafa was and like is, you know? So just amazing. And as soon as Federer found his groove, here he comes. Here Rafa comes. And when Rafa came, it was like, all right, this young man's going to be a problem for Roger. So Roger's got a few more years before this guy is sharing the spotlight with him. And boom, the next year that began. The next year, Rafa wins the French Open as a teenager. I think by the end of that year, 2005, definitely 2006, he's a solid number 2 in the world, right behind Roger. Rafa's from Spain, small island, Mallorca, family man, you know, still resides there. And became the greatest clay court player of all time. I mean, he has 14 French Open titles alone. Pete Sampras has 14 Grand Slams, and he was considered the greatest of all time in the previous era. Rafael Nadal has 14 French Open titles alone. He has 14 French Open titles, 2 Wimbledon, 2 Australian as of this year, and 4 US Opens. All court, all surface player. People thought that his career was going to be short because of how he moves around the court. You know, so many muscles, like brute force, and just his style. They thought that he was going to burn out much quicker. Not the case. He's now in his mid-30s. I think Rafa turned 30. He was born in 86. So Rafa turned 36 this year. So this is his last year being in his mid-30s. He's now going into his late 30s. Is still at the top of the game. Still won 2 Grand Slams this year. Started the year, I want to say, like 20 plus and 0. He had one of his best seasons this year. At least the first half of the season. Made it to the Wimbledon semifinal. He won the Australian, won the French, beat Novak on the way to that. Made it to the Wimbledon semifinals and had to pull out. Wasn't able to play against Nick Kyrgios, who went on into the final to play against Novak Djokovic. US Open, he lost earlier, you know, 4th round or so. Won his last match of the year, officially on tour, you know, at the ATP finals, but has 2 Grand Slams and broke the tie with Roger and Novak this year. Became the second man to win all 4 Grand Slams at least twice. Him and Novak share that feat. So he has the most. He's the top of the pile. If it's like, who's the greatest of all time? Well, who has the most? Rafa has the most. He has the second most, maybe 2-3 behind Novak Djokovic in terms of Masters 1000 titles. But he has the most in terms of Grand Slams by 22. And that's the most in the year 2022. Rafa has joined the other, you know, big 3, big 4, and now becoming a father very recently, within the previous 2 months. He's a married man within the, you know, that happened within the previous 5 years. So the big 4 are all married with children. So it shows you the importance of what family is to successful men. So Rafa just can, you know, people wrote him off to start the year. He's coming off an injury. He doesn't even know if he'll ever play again. He's on crutches, this time in 2021, October, November, he's on crutches. And then in January, going into February, he's winning the tournament that's been the most challenging for him to win for a second time. That's the Australian Open. And the way that he did it in his greatest comeback ever, and one of the top greatest comebacks ever, considered the magnitude of the moment, he did that this year at 35 at that point. And then backing that up with beating Novak to go on to win. I think he beat Novak in the quarterfinals or semifinals. And then he went on to win another French Open title. Had he played at Wimbledon, who knows what would have happened. So Rafa's at the top of the pile, man. Every time people doubt him, he not only wins, he does it. He does it in a way that's spectacular and grandiose. Of like, what? He did what? He not just won, but who he beat and how he beat. And he's my guy because it's just something about his spirit and his energy on court. Where it's like he's a controlled, fiery player. Vamos! Very professional, controlled, but fire is there. That bull, that raging bull is there. But off the court, for the most part, peaceful, gentleman-like. He's also a businessman. His tennis academy and what he's doing with that and changing the tennis world. Exhibition of Central and South America. I think that's where he's at right now. Kind of like spreading the game. So Rafa's my guy. Connected to his heart. I like his game the most. And he's the most successful. Rafa, in terms of Grand Slams, Rafa has that singles Grand Slam gold medal in the Olympics. Unfortunately, him and Roger never played at the U.S. Open, in the U.S. Open final. That's the one, they played in the other 3 Grand Slam finals, but never at the U.S. Open. So the New Yorkers never got an opportunity to see that. The world never got an opportunity to see that. So that's unfortunate. But, none of us can have everything. Can have it all. And that's okay, because that's a part of having it all. Of being humble. So Roger's just Rafa, the bond between him and Roger, and it's magnificent. So Rafa, you're my guy. Vamos. I see you. I support you. I salute you, man. I love you. And congratulations, and keep on doing what you're doing. All right? Peace and blessings. Novak Djokovic. When people were like, Roger, now Rafa. Now it's the big two. It's like Rafa and Roger. They're dominating the sport. 1 and 2 in the world. They're winning all the Grand Slams. They're competing against each other. They're creating all-time great finals matches. Rafa just beat Roger at Wimbledon. He's crossed over into his world. Now he's beating him there. He's dominating him there. Rafa's the great. Rafa's going to be the greatest of all time, potentially. Meanwhile, Novak is retiring from tennis matches, having some nasal issues and, different kinds of health issues or whatever was going on with him, retiring too often to his liking from matches, but still competing at a high level, to the point where it was like, well, behind those two, this guy is also top 10. Now he's top 5, and he's right there. Now he's number 3. He's not really beating them in Grand Slam finals, but he might get 1 or 2 here and there. And then somewhere around 2010, 2011, that's just switched. Novak changed something in his diet, his nutrition, gluten-free, plant-based, and that allowed him to get his mentals in order. It allowed him to get his body in order. I think he might have had some surgery, or he had some surgery and procedures, to get his body right. Became a married man and just got his life right going into the 2010s. And then he began for a stretch to dominate Roger and Rafa and the entire sport. Rafa dominated the entire sport for about a 2-year span, when he was like number one. And I want to say like 2008 to like 2010. Yep, 2008 to like 2011. He was dominating Roger on up until like 2016, 2017. Him and Novak more so had like a back and forth. But then Novak just turned the tables. And Novak was like, nah, I'm the best. Even when I looked at Novak back in 2010, I had an old friend of mine ask me back in 2010. And she was like, out of all the players, like, whose body type would you like to have? Or whose game or body type would you like to have? And I was like, well, ideally, if I was like, 6'4", 6'5", like, Thomas Berdych, that'd be cool. Strong up top, big legs. But that, the legs might slow you down. So I was like, I would have to go with Novak Djokovic. 6'2", lean, but strong, kind of ripped, very flexible, agile, quick, can slide, do splits, like has a complete game. Long neck, just his, strong forehand, strong backhand, movement around the court, cleverness, complete package. I was like, I have to go with Novak Djokovic. She was like, what? Novak Djokovic? Out of all players? I'm like, yeah. You fast forward 12 years later, I was correct. I mean, Novak got the better of Rafa from like 2011 to like 2019. What Rafa did to Roger, Novak did to Rafa. And Novak did some of that to Roger as well. And Novak is scary because he's a player that I'm like, man, Rafa's my guy. Roger and I have kind of grew up and he's become like my secondary guy. But Novak, I'm like, Novak's game and where he's going with it. Limitless, man. He might be the greatest of all time when it's all said and done. In terms of longevity, wins, titles. He doesn't have that singles gold medal, though. He doesn't have that gold medal. Rafa has that. Roger has that. So that's what he's aiming towards. I'm going to say this right now. He's breaking all the records. He's not going to win 14 Grand Slams of any tournament like Rafa. You probably want him to get to 13. He might get to 10 Australian Open titles. He might get to 10 Wimbledon titles. Who knows? If he gets to 10 Wimbledon titles, 1, and 10 Australian titles, 1, and a gold medal, he's the greatest of all time, bar none. Even if he just gets the gold medal and wins more Grand Slams than Roger, obviously. And Rafa, I can see that he's the greatest of all time. Right now, it's still heavily debatable. But watching Novak is just like, man, this guy is just complete package. But people can be like, well, Rafa's still in it. Rafa still continues to surprise. Novak won 1 Grand Slam this year. Rafa won 2. So there you go with that. You know, Novak is a year younger. You know, so he's getting it quicker. But Novak is just, you know, just the consistency, the Masters titles, the work that he's put in. And then this year, all the controversy with, you know, being banned or not being allowed into this country and that country and not being able to play this Grand Slam and that Grand Slam, but yet still when he's able to play, dominating. That's right, I said it. He's either playing good or he's dominating the tournaments that he's played. He's won at least 5 tournaments, 5 big he's won at least 5 titles this year. Some of them being Masters titles, some of them being a Grand Slam title. So it's like, if you give him an opportunity, he's more than likely going to win, even in the face of this kind of adversity. Granted, it's his doing in great part, choices that he's making and has made. But yet still, it's like, okay, I didn't play for a stretch of 2 months. Or I missed that entire Grand Slam. Or I missed that one. But when I hop on tour, I'm still going to dominate. So that's not easy to do. And he's going into, you know, he closed the year winning the top tournament. He's top 5 in the world, 6-5 in the world. But he won the Masters ATP Finals again. I think he's tied with Roger Federer. I think he has like 6 or 7 or something like that. So Novak, you're you. Unique. Keep doing you, man. Warrior. Outlasting Rafa in these legendary long matches. And Roger. So salute to you, man. Salute to your greatness, brother. I see you. I salute you. So that's that. And on a more personal level, it'd be interesting if like Andy Murray is like the last one to retire out of all these guys. You know, it seems like up next might be, you know, Stan. You know, he's the second oldest behind Roger. Andy said that he was going to retire like 3-4 years ago, you know, because of his hip surgery and him battling through that. But now he's had a decent season. He's had a decent season by his standing. For some, he's had a good year. So he's been able to turn the tide just a little bit. But he's still playing. He seems to be in a good place mentally. Stan, I'm not sure where he's at. Del Potro retired 2021, if I'm correct. 2021, was it this year? 2021, 22. He recently retired in the previous year. Juan Martín Del Potro. So Stan might be on his way. Roger retired, you know, very recently within the previous 2 months. And that was an incredible retirement ceremony. Ask Rafa. But focusing in on the big 3, Roger's obviously in a good place. Just got a celebration, you know, in Asia somewhere, and they showed, you know, their love and admiration, you know, to him and his great work that he's done in the sport. You know, and of course, at the Laver Cup in London, how that went for Roger and the entire team and teams. So Roger's in a good place. His family, his kids are, he's got some teenagers now and the boys and 2 sets of twins. And it's just like his wife, his parent, like he's in a good place. You can see it and feel it in his spirit. Tough for him to retire, but the way that he went about it was class personified. He's in a good place. Rafa, I'm looking at Rafa, and Rafa just seems like he's going through something. Ever since Wimbledon and him having to pull out from there because of an injury, like since July, like the second half of the year, he seems like I could just see something in his eyes or in his spirit. Even the entire year, but definitely the second half. It seems like he's going through something personal, like very personal, deeply personal that he's battling. Obviously he just became a father, so I'm sure he's elated for that, and that's incredible for him. And I know that his wife, very recently, had some complications like a few months before giving birth, so that was concerning for him as well, and on his mind, he's trying to work through that, and then his own injuries, and it just seems, I just look at him, and it just seems like there's something like on his mind, that he's grappling with. Like there's something else there. And so I'm just sending him good energy and good vibes, man. So get through that, Rafa. Keep pushing through, and may that turn out good for you. All right. Novak seems to be in his groove. Has some issues in his marriage over the previous 3 to 5 years. Got that back on track. Is delving into being a parent. I think he has 2 children, wholeheartedly. And, playing tennis with his son. His daughter's like sitting in the ATP Finals Cup, if I'm correct. And he just, his wife and him, the vibe, his parent, he just seems to be in a good space. He just seems to have clarity, and he's clear mentally, even in the midst of all the drama with the Australian Open and the US Open, and him not being able to play those 2 Grand Slams, 2 out of the 4. With who he is, the choices that he's made and that he is making, even if they're controversial, just like in the face of all that, he's standing firm, standing on the square with who he is, his thoughts and convictions, his faith, his beliefs. He's standing in that, and that's admirable. That's admirable. He's able to show up on that court and play at an all-time great level whenever he is presented that opportunity. And he just seems to have that energy, that aura around him, on him, emanating from him. And even in his mind, it's just grace and class, and he just seems to be in a great place. And may his greatness continue. So keep it up, Novak. Salute. So that's that. It's been an era unlike any other in sport to have 3 all-time greats, not just 3, 4, 5, definitely 4. Let's focus in on the 3 all-time greats battling each other day in, day out, week in, week out, strong in, strong out, month in, month out, year in, year out, decade in, decade out. We're going into 2023. And from Roger coming in the sport in the late 90s to starting to have his presence felt in the early 2000s to now we're in the 2020s. This is amazing. So these are the good old days, the good days, the great days of tennis, of the sport. So wishfully you've enjoyed it right alongside with me. I'm sure you have. If you're into tennis, tennis has now become my favorite sport. I'm at odds with basketball and the NBA. I'm at odds with, but it's only been basketball and tennis. Football, I'm stopping watching that as well for X amount of reasons. Baseball, I haven't really gotten into it this year at all. But basketball has always been my favorite team sport. And right now, I'm just like, based upon recent activities with that league and the media, I'm good on it. I haven't really watched anything over the previous month or so, month and a half. So now I'm sharing to the world for the first time ever, tennis is now my favorite sport. There's no owners of a player or a team in tennis. You're free to be great. So thank you to Venus and Serena, to Del Potro, to Stanislav Wawrinka, to Andy Murray, to Novak Djokovic, to Roger Federer, and to Rafael Nadal. Thank you for this era. Thank you for your great work. You are appreciated. You are loved. You are saluted. So with that being said, we're going to go out in a similar way that we came in. And again, please make sure you like, subscribe, share, click the notification bell. And yeah, this has been a journey for me, and being, at this locale for several years now. And, it's been an era, and the era is coming to a close to usher in a new era and a new version, better iteration of me as a human, as a man, as a Black man, as a foundational Black American man, as a professional. And I thank you for being a part of that journey. So I see you. I salute you. I'm thankful for you. And until next time, take good care. Akhmose, Soul Power Tennis.